Most advice about AuDHD management strategies focus on planners, alarms, and productivity hacks. And yes, those help sometimes. For some people, they are all they need. But if you've got AuDHD, you'll know that it takes an entire toolkit to make life manageable. For me, management isn't just about executive functioning. It's about transitions, lifestyle choices, how I set up my home, and even how I use childcare. So today I'm sharing the strategies that I actually use to manage my brain, my energy, and my home. They're not perfect, and I don't stick to all of them all the time, but when they do work, they change everything. Hi, I'm Jess, that AuDHD mum. I'm here to help you understand your neurodivergent brain. On this channel, I share what life really looks like when you have autism and ADHD, AuDHD, and I make resources to help you understand your brain, reduce the shame, and build systems that actually make sense.
Future Jess here. I am aware that there is an issue with sound quality. I have bought a new microphone hoping that it would make it better, but I think it's made it worse. So I'm sending that one back, but there are a couple of videos that have been pre-recorded with this microphone. Now I'm not sure if it's something to do with uploading. If anyone has a special interest with technology, recording, anything like this, and can let me know what it might be, please do let me know. I have sent this microphone back. I'm not totally convinced that it's the microphones that I'm using. I'm wondering whether it's something to do with my upload settings. So right now I'm recording just on my phone with my phone's microphone, so it'll be interesting to see if this is any different. This sound issue needs to improve, and I'm just not sure where to go yet. I'm not in a position right now to pay for anyone to help me with this. So yeah, any tips or pages anyone can direct me to help me, please just let me know. Anyway, heading back into the video.
Today we're talking management strategies. Some are evidence-based, some are quite personal to me, but all of them help me function. And here's the thing, yes, a lot of these things could help anyone, but for AuDHD, the challenge isn't just knowing what would help, it's actually being able to do that then consistently without burning out. Let's get into the ones that work best for me. Let's start with something really simple but life-changing for me, how I manage transitions. So if I'm on my own, I will arrive early before I have to go in. That gives me time to be able to reset in my car, remember what I need to do, where I am, who I'm going to see before I go in. When I get home, I'll often sit in the car for a few minutes, and that helps me to transition before I face all the noise and the demands. Both of those things can be completely different though if I've got the kids, because if I've got the kids, it can become a sensory nightmare having to sit inside the car whilst they're screaming. So in that situation, it ends up being more productive to just get out of the car straight away. I listen to podcasts or music in the car everywhere I go. Not having these can actually be really detrimental for me. When I'm driving in the car, my ADHD gets bored. So having something to listen to can actually help with that. Not only that, if I'm in the car and I haven't got something to listen to, I start spiraling and thinking about everything else that needs to be done. Also, as crazy as it might sound, when I'm listening to music in the car or listening to a podcast, I'm focusing on that listening, but I'm also driving. I actually drive better than when there's nothing on in the background, because then my brain starts to wander. So when over the summer this year my car media system started to break, yes, it did end up resulting in a few meltdowns, but we think we've sorted it now. So fingers crossed. Loud music can also be a sensory seeking experience for me, especially if I've been struggling. It can really help me to wind down. The autistic side of me needs a buffer for transitions, whilst the ADHD side needs the stimulation. The next one is less about organisation and more about lifestyle, the choices that I make to keep my brain clearer. I'm mostly alcohol free. Maybe once or twice a year I'll have a drink. Why do I do this? Well, because alcohol makes my brain really foggy and unsettled. Staying a little bit more clear-headed is better for my focus and my emotional regulation. That is probably true for everyone, but for someone who's already struggling with emotional regulation difficulties, sensory overload, that alcohol can have a real impact on that and take it from a point where I can manage to a point where I can't cope anymore. So some small lifestyle tweaks can actually make a huge difference in how regulated that we feel. Now, I can appreciate that for some people, alcohol might be a more regular part of their daily life. But I would say if you are ADHD, it's really worth considering going sober, like completely, because it can really help in so many ways. Unfortunately, us ADHDers, autistic people, any of us that fit under those categories are more at risk of addiction, and that includes alcoholism, because we use it to cope. I often joke that when I have a drink, my autism just disappears and the ADHD comes out full blast, which at the time can feel fun, but then I realise after it's not actually that good. Another big one for me is movement, and not just because it's healthy, because of how it actually makes my brain feel. Running is huge for me, and the science backs this up too. Research shows that regular aerobic exercise improves attention and executive function in ADHD, and it reduces stress in autistic people too. It's actually one of the simplest and most effective tools that we can use. Now, without me going on and on about running, I started running at the start of this year, and I don't actually go out very often at the moment because I simply do not have the time. But what I can say is that when I started, I was extremely unfit, but just a few runs in, I could feel my fitness improving. And that was to a point that I actually enjoy going for a run now. And I can tell the difference between when I have been able to go for more regular runs versus when I haven't. Even if I just go out for 5 minutes locally to where I live, that makes a huge difference to the rest of my day, sometimes even the rest of the week. Physically, it's exercise. We know that that helps. Mentally, it feels amazing to know that I've done it. I kept a promise to myself. But equally, we know that scientifically the endorphins from exercise do help our brains. And then sensory wise, I mentioned before about loud music. I run with loud music, and it's a sensory joy as much as an outlet. And this is the massive point. Exercise doesn't need to be about performance. For ADHD brains, it can be about regulation and release. Now, housework is one of those things that can spiral out of control really quickly. So I've learned to simplify and delegate where I can. I actually don't fold or iron any clothes, ever. And I know some of you will be like, what? How can you do that? Why? Like, how can you live like that? Look, I use a steamer if I need to get creases out. I mean, day to day, there's a lot of things that it doesn't really matter too much if there's a few creases in your outfit. But if I need to, I use a steamer. It takes seconds and I can just do it if I need to. It removes a lot of the tasks involved in putting clothes away, so it means that I'm more likely to get those clothes away. We also have a cleaner every 2 weeks, and I appreciate that not everyone can afford that, but something that we asked ourselves a while ago was, what can we do with that time that it would usually take us so much longer to get the cleaning done than it takes our cleaner to get that cleaning done, because I'd be struggling with the executive functioning, like getting distracted by other things, and our time we figured was worth that, if that makes sense. Our cleaner makes sure that all of the important areas are done, the bathrooms are cleaned, the bedding is changed, upstairs is hoovered and dusted, which is where I struggle to get to clean the most, and downstairs in the kitchen and the lounge is where we manage best. So she doesn't do down here for us, it's just upstairs. And going back to not ironing and folding clothes, research on executive dysfunction shows that reducing decision points and cutting unnecessary steps is one of the best ways to conserve energy and avoid overwhelm. So yes, skipping folding is really a strategy. Good enough systems free up energy for things that matter more. Of course, I still rely on the classic executive function supports too, but I have had to adapt them for my brain. So I have alarms on my phone for things that other people might just remember. I have a shared task list with my husband, and the idea is that if I don't remember to go check that task list, he should have, so he can remind me, on the opposite way round, of course. We also have a family calendar. If it isn't in there, it isn't happening. I also WhatsApp myself reminders or like documents and things that I need to remember, I need to be able to find easily. And I do voice notes to friends when words are hard, and I end up usually saying a lot more on voice notes. Some people would say that I do podcasts in my voice notes. I also sometimes use ChatGPT to help me with time estimates and thinking through tasks or breaking them down. I might separate my list into must do and want to do, and that helps me scale depending on my energy. I actually created a free daily planner. Well, a free planner, it's got daily, weekly and monthly planners in it, And the daily one is actually split so that you can have low energy days and higher energy days. So if you want that, the link is down below. I always put the link to my Stand Store and my free resources down below. Body doubling doesn't always necessarily need to be another person there. Sometimes it can be the act of like recording yourself doing something. So sometimes if I'm really struggling to get the cleaning done, I will literally just record myself with the idea that I'm going to post like a glow up for the room. Sometimes, well, often I don't even end up posting it, but it just seems to help me get done, and I do see it as a form of body doubling. Clinicians who work with ADHD actually say that body doubling is powerful because it reduces avoidance and it sort of gives you a sense of external accountability. You feel sort of less alone in the task. Sometimes I might use chunking as well, if anybody's heard that. And that is like breaking things into really tiny steps so that I don't freeze. And I'll consider myself successful if I've managed to do any of them tiny steps. So I don't sort of beat myself up if I haven't done the entire thing. Doing some still means I've been productive. Research from CBT for adults with ADHD shows that breaking tasks down into smaller steps is one of the most effective ways to get unstuck and actually start. And of course, the mindset piece is self-compassion. That is the most important. I will always remind you of that. Being compassionate to yourself is so important. If you don't be compassionate to yourself and you let yourself believe that you are a terrible human, the research out there shows that you are less likely to get up and carry on. So not only is self-compassion good for the way that you feel, it's actually good for getting stuff done too. The research shows that self-compassion reduces stress and improves coping in ADHD. And as I said, it means that kindness to yourself isn't just being fluffy, it's literally evidence-based. Another massive help for me has been setting up proper support systems for childcare. Now, a lot of people might not agree with this, but that's absolutely okay because I've already worked through this myself and I'm well aware that this is right for me and my family. My kids are in childcare 5 days a week. They're not school aged yet, but they are in childcare 5 days a week. It means that I don't have to constantly juggle around family support, trying to work out who's going to have them for when I'm at work or when I'm studying or when I'm doing this, that, or whatever. I already know that for 5 days, for certain times, they're already in childcare. And I know that they're safe and happy. They both absolutely love it there. So, it means that I can self regulate better and it means that they are happy and well cared for. Sometimes I do just take them out of nursery for a day so that we can go and do something as a family. But knowing that they're in for them 5 days is essential for us. It also sometimes gives me child-free time to reset. That isn't often. I'm not at home like 4 or 5 days. Out of those days, I'm out quite a lot, but it does mean on the very few days that I get at home, I can rest or engage in my special interests. Sometimes it's just catching up on the house, and that really helps with my mindset. AuDHD management isn't about doing everything yourself, it's about building safe systems that support the whole family. My kids being in childcare that much means that when they get home, for the most part, I'm a much more regulated and involved mum, and I love that both for me and for them. Finally, I want to be honest about the strategies themselves, why they sometimes help and why sometimes they don't. I know that these strategies might seem like things that anyone could use. The difference with AuDHD is that sticking to these things consistently is actually quite hard in itself. And these things that cause stress, for most people, it causes an amount of stress that is manageable. But for AuDHDers, that stress can very easily become unmanageable. And again, the research agrees. Guidelines from NICE, which is the National Institute for Care Excellence, highlight that management for ADHD and autism isn't just about medication or one single fix. It's about layered strategies, environmental changes, and supports all working together. When they do stick, even for a little while, the difference is massive. The key isn't perfection, it's having enough tools in your kit so something always helps. These strategies might look small or even obvious, but for an AuDHD brain, they're the difference between drowning and staying afloat. And I want you to hear this. If you can't stick to all of them all of the time, it doesn't mean you're failing. It means that you're human. The real goal isn't to use every single strategy perfectly all the time. It's to have enough options that on any given day, there's something that you can lean on. And don't forget, I've got free resources linked down below. I'm releasing a new free resource every week, and if you're signed up to my email list, I'll let you know whenever they're released. If this video resonated, please hit subscribe. I'm sharing new content at least once a week on AuDHD, live parenting, the science in the brain, and strategies that make sense. Lastly, I'd love to know in the comments, what's your unexpected management strategy? What's that little thing that makes a big difference for you? I'm Jess, that AuDHD mum. Let's make this space make sense for our brains.